Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Gunn Show. Now, a lot of you who listen to the Gunn Show podcast know that I go into this big spiel about if you've shown up to the Gunn Show for muscles or guns. I don't have either of those. And maybe you showed up for the wrong reason, but you should stay for the right reasons. And usually I wait until, a 2 or 3 minute spiel to introduce my guests. Only in this unique, unusual, and amazing episode, we have the video as well. I am at Concise Manufacturing here in Carolina, in North Carolina to be exact. And the guy you see on camera with me today, his name is Dwain. Dwain's the owner of Concise Manufacturing, and we were talking about the story, the foundation, the history, the creation of Concise Manufacturing. And then we started talking about some of the parts that he did or did not know if he'd be able to show today. But we found out, we made a couple of incredible phone calls, and some folks said yes to us for the first time, which is really, really cool. So for those of you watching right now, you're going to get to see some really neat parts that have been machined and the reason behind why they've been machined. For those of you listening, we will try to, as vividly as possible, describe some of these parts as we go into it. So firstly, with Dwain being here, I'm going to make this introduction. Concise Manufacturing, starting in 2014 with the exact machine behind me. But let me tell you something. Dwain bought this machine kind of broken a little bit for $10,000 and took a year and a half to fix it and starting his own machine shop, working 2 jobs at the same time, maybe more. I'm going to let him tell that story, but I'm just so excited to be here with you today and to share Dwain's story today on the Gunn Show podcast. Now, going back to what the Gunn Show podcast is about, for those of you who tuned in for the first time, this is about bringing awareness to manufacturing. This is about humanizing our industry. This is about looking around us and seeing almost everything around us being made by manufacturing and bringing a level of respect to manufacturing that we in manufacturing think we deserve. And I know I said the word manufacturing a lot, but that's the important part, is that we understand why we're here, why we're listening. And Dwain is one of those people that, in my opinion, is well worth your time. The value of time is expensive, but Dwain is worth that time. So Dwain, that's my long-winded introduction. Thank you so much for being a part of the Gunn Show. And let's hear a little bit about your story, shall we? This is the Gunn Show.
Yeah, that's quite the introduction to live up to, and I'll do my best, but yeah, you say that I hear that a lot in there, but really it's about our team, right? And that team began as a lone journey, but not really so much. I can remember talking to my wife about this machine, right? Many a young machinist, you have dreams. You look at these magazines, you think, man, I'd love to make those parts. Man, I'd love to get those opportunities, but you just wonder if that chance will ever happen. And so I rolled the dice, and I did some things that were uncomfortable, like, making phone calls, trying to get work, making phone calls, trying to say, hey, can you help me with this? And even from the beginning, and saying to my wife, hey, are you okay with me, spending this money to do this, which we really didn't have, right? But, I had some help in every step of the way. It really wasn't done by myself. So many people, too many really to mention, but we've had people that worked late nights, overnights. We worked in shifts. We had a period of time early in the company when we took one of the first large orders that had 4 guys, and we were working in 6-hour shifts, 24 hours a day for 2 straight weeks on this machine to produce parts that really required more axes than what we had, but we used fixturing, we used our creativity to solve those problems. And really, at the end of the day, this is a problem-solving business. You talk about really what you're talking about in manufacturing is evangelizing, right? And it's so easy to evangelize something that you believe in, that you know helps people's quality of life. And so as we go through these parts here today on this table, you're going to hear that story over and over again, because what we can do here in this company is we can get burned out on problem after problem after problem, seemingly impossible, unreasonable request, but we figure out working together how to make that happen. And along the way, we've also learned when to say no, which is an important thing. So really, my story is a story of a lot of different people, and I wish they all could share this camera. Some of them are going to get to share the camera today, and I think if you listen to what they have to say about the belief they have and the difference we make in the world, you'll see why it's easy for us to make an impact. So this machine I bought in 2014. Again, if you're a car guy, it's kind of like finding a broke down, busted down hot rod, but you're like, ooh, I know what that is, right?
That thing's got potential.
Yeah. But boy, if you could only know how much it was going to take to get it there, whew, you might not have took that plunge. But
we do that in cars all the time too, though.
Absolutely. Well, and it never ceases to amaze me as these industries, and we serve all different types of industries. And back to your talking about manufacturing, my family, my children, my wife especially, is so tired of hearing me being at a restaurant saying, look at that salt shaker. The top of that was stamped out. Oh, look at this was molded. Look at these machining marks. They're like, yeah, we get it, right? But manufacturing, machining in particular, it really does touch everything. I mean, it's the tools and wood products were ground to produce those tools, right? Dies, molds, or directly machined parts. Like everything has some traceability back to machining that I can think of. So when we looked at getting this machine, kind of like a barn find, right? It didn't run. We didn't know what problems it had with it. I just knew that's a price point at which I can kind of jump on, and then I can piecemeal it, feeling kind of like Johnny Cash, one piece at a time here, right?
Right.
So, you know, it came with getting the machine and then getting together with a longtime friend. We drove to Detroit. I arranged a rigger. We bought this machine. A machine that actually had a fourth axis on it from the factory. It had been used in a company in Detroit, Michigan that did cold forming dies, and they did a lot of electrodes on it. But they did not take care of this machine at all. It was horrible. Just maintenance was non-existent. So it had a rotary on it that had actually been sold, and they just couldn't sell it at auction. So I made an offer. They accepted it, and I'm like, oh, well, now what do I do, right? And so we drove up there. We got a rigger to load it. You know, I had been familiar with Micron equipment for years. So when we got there, I knew how to rig it. I knew how to get it secured for shipment. We just threw in on it. We got the machine on a trailer, drove it back here. You know, we had the right truck, the right trailer, the right equipment, but we came out of Detroit with just this monster storm. It's raining like a monsoon. And
Murphy's Law popped up.
Yeah, but I mean, adversity. Life is full of adversity, and we just have to embrace that, right? There's going to be, in a life where you're trying to achieve things, really, these are not my words, but I read them not too long ago, and I really think they're true, is that when you're trying to live a life of achievement or you're trying to be the best version of yourself, there's three constants. There's pain, there's uncertainty, and there's constant work. And that journey in the beginning, coming out in this monstrous storm, was kind of showing what the future was going to look like to some degree. So got the machine back. It was kind of a family project there when we got the machine back. It had ran graphite, and boy, we took everything apart on this machine. We had a hot seat pressure washer. My kids, I've got pictures of them out there helping. My wife helping. We're scrubbing that thing down, putting it back together. We had to put a hot and hind control in it, which was really expensive. Had to put a new spindle in it. Had three-phase power ran down to my shop from Duke Power, only to realize my air compressor was pitifully undersized, and we needed to go get dry air for this very expensive spindle we had just put in this machine. So, again, lots of adversity to overcome in that journey just to get the first part made. But
Wow.
it was August of 2014. I put the bid on the machine there. I think in August, September, we went and got the machine. Just got it into the shop was a chore. So it was really February of 2016 before I shipped my first parts. Okay, but from there it moved pretty fast, and I was working then as a manager of a shop that was a very good job, and I was trying to do both things, but my hard-headedness, I just tell myself, you can just work more tonight. You can just do more. And so we shipped the first parts in February. By November, I was burnt. I was behind everywhere, realizing you can't pull this out. You can't do everything. So I had to make that decision then to to leave that full-time job and pursue this with all my energy. And it took myself and some people, some very dear friends that came and just stayed with me. For about 6 weeks we worked practically day and night, but we got caught up on those orders and kind of regained our footing there. So that's really how it kind of started in that crucible, formed in the crucible of adversity, and still learning lessons, out of that I'm using to this day.
Yeah, I think those of us who are continually looking for success are continually learning every day and trying to find ways to learn. If it's okay with you, Dwain, I'd like to build a little connection with the audience and the foundation for who you are. And if you wouldn't mind expanding on, you had mentioned to me, you had 3 jobs that most people would have never left, right?
Yeah.
And they're solid careers, but you always had in your mind the idea, I want to own a machine shop. You even mentioned to me one time back in 2005 or 2004, you had spoken to a guy who said, when I own my machine shop, you're going to come work with me, and that was, 10 years later or something. So if you wouldn't mind, because I want you to connect with the audience, and I want the audience who's listening to you to go, well, these are reasons why I'd like to work with Concise, is because Dwain comes from this background. Dwain has this experience. And Dwain was able to take a graphite-destroyed machine, turn it into a production machine, one person, one machine, one person, right? And we're going to talk in a minute about everything that we see around us in your machine shop. But I'd like to first continue to build that foundation of, there's people out there right now probably daydreaming about starting a machine shop, probably have a little bit of fear about starting a machine shop. So would you mind sharing your journey and your steps that it took? The future of American manufacturing isn't a talking point or a pipe dream. It is here and now. Companies like Methods Machine Tools are hiring all across the country for positions ranging from entry level to service technicians and senior engineers. Methods Machine Tools is a CNC tool importer that prides itself on providing world-class service and support to manufacturers across North America. Methods has built a culture over 60 years as one of the best companies in the industry to work for, based around work-life balance, shared knowledge, and education. Learn more about Methods by visiting www.methodsmachine.com.
Absolutely. So I can remember in the late 90s, right, buying things. One of the early shops I worked at, we had tool accounts, right? So you get your toolbox. Man, I want some micrometers. I want some calipers. I want this tool, right? And you could get X amount of dollars on your payroll deduct, right? And I kept that thing maxed out for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? I just always building this, and I thought maybe one day I'll have a shop, and maybe it's just in my backyard for the things I want to do. Which they say the mechanic always has the most broken down car, and I think as machinists we always have these projects we want to do, yet we could never get to them. I thought, well, maybe one day I'll have some machines that I can just do the things I want to make, right? But I can remember just having that ember in my brain that, man, that would really be nice. In 2004, I moved to North Carolina. I went to work for a fantastic company that, really up to that point, I had worked in a lot of places. I'd had a lot of frustration. I really wanted to come in. I wanted to do a good job. A lot of places, if you're overly ambitious, there's politics, there's drama, it's just met with some things that you just don't understand as a young man, right? And so when I moved here in 2004, I went to work for a company that really just turned me loose. They gave me a key to the building, were willing to let me learn on anything, make anything, do anything. Like, they really just let me flourish in that creativity and learn so much working with those gentlemen. They made such a huge impact on my life. At that time, I met a gentleman, Anthony Spriggs, that you're talking about. We worshiped together, and he just oozed operations manager, so put together. And I was like, Anthony, one day I want to have a company, and I don't know if it's going to be a machine shop or what it's going to be. I'm just like, one day I want to do something with you, and I want you to come be my operations manager. And we laugh about this, but I'm a big believer in speaking these things. What you speak, what you speak becomes your reality, right? So we want to speak good things into our life, but they got to be followed up by hard work. and 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 you do it as a team, right? You can't do it all by yourself. So if we're talking back into the path to get here, so early on I started on lathes, and I saw machining actually for the first time back in high school. It was in my freshman year of high school. I wanted to take auto mechanics. You couldn't just take auto mechanics. I wanted to take it. The only way I could do it was to take a 4-week, or there was a course called Introduction to Vocational Education. And you had to take 9 weeks of machine shop, 9 weeks of drafting, 9 weeks of electronics, 9 weeks of auto mechanics. Never took auto mechanics again. I took machine shop for 3 years, electronics for 3 years, and drafting for 2 years. That being said, I really wasn't interested in high school in doing anything I was supposed to do. I was a terrible student. I could make straight A's in history and literature, but everything else, I had really no interest in being there. So I didn't really make the most of the time I had in machine shop, but I had a great teacher. His name was Bill Hurd. My electronics teacher was Ken Eaton, and those two guys were really, they don't know it even to this day. Hopefully maybe they'll see this, but they made a big impact on me. But I remember walking into the machine shop and seeing a steel shaft and a lathe, and the metal was just peeling off there, and I was mesmerized. This is cool, right?
Right.
And I know I'm doing what I need to do, because even to this day, when we get these machines set up and they're doing their thing, I just press my nose up against the glass, and I'm like, wow, And so from a kid who had no idea really what it was, if I can speak to today's, folks who generally don't really know what machining is, if you like video games and you like playing with Legos, this is the adult version of video games and Legos, right? The Legos are all these tools, all these fixtures, all these equipment, everything we have at our disposal in the shop physically is our Legos. And the programming side is like playing video games, because oftentimes those video games is solving one problem after another. And as we begin the programming process, that's what we're doing. And we really preach the idea that you really had to be two machinists in this effort. You got to be a digital machinist, and you need to be a real life on the floor machinist. And if what you do between the two matches, it's a beautiful thing. If it doesn't, it's horrible, right? So to that effect, we have all of these fixtures, all of the Lang, all of the things that are here at our disposal in the shop. They're modeled digitally, and we can build those setups. We can check those clearances. We can do that work while the machines are running other parts, right? And so we'll hop back to the part about high school. So came out of high school, really had no direction. Thought I wanted to be a maintenance man, but that really fizzled out pretty fast. And I found myself working in a screw machine shop. And, I was on the old screw machines, and I got covered one day in high sulfur oil. About 10 o'clock in the morning, I reach up there to adjust a hose. Ooh. Pow! It just hits me. I'm like, man, I am done with this. I'm just done. And so I left. And I was actually working for a temporary agency. So picture this, 18, 19 years old, right? No direction. I oftentimes think back to that Pink Floyd line where it says, nobody told me when to run, right? That's how I felt, I just hadn't really no prospect there as far as what I wanted to do. And I ended up with this temporary agency back at the screw machine shop, and they said, we're going to let you run CNC lathes. And again, this is a point where you have to speak up in life, right? You have to take that chance. So I show up for work that night, and the guy's like, yeah, let me walk you back here. And he starts walking me back toward these screw machines. And I'm like, wait a minute, you said I was going to get to run these lathes. And he's like, oh, okay. So he took me to the lathes. But had I never made that comment, right, my whole future could be different.
Sure.
So, we had some good guys there, but it was high production. At one point, for a long time that I was there, it was me and one other guy on night shift running 11 lathes. Bar feeders, lots of parts, but it was good. I was able to get my chops, and I moved on. And early on, I had that lathe experience, and I remember thinking a lot of guys were a lathe guy or a mill guy, and I'm like, I want to learn milling, right? And so I've changed so many jobs along the way. The first 10 years I was in the trade, I never made it any one place 2 years, like politics or boredom and I know that sounds bad, but one of the great things that came out of that was I got to see how so many different people did things, right? And take that and put it in your mental toolbox, and just that creativity and that difference of approach. And having never really gone to school for machining, I didn't know what you couldn't do. So we would try things and be like, that works. And they'd be like, oh, man, no, you can't do it like that. I'm like, but it works, right? And so that led me to some jobs where I'd say the first of which was working at Nissan, the engine plant down in Deckard, Tennessee. I had a gentleman that I worked with at another company. He went there, and through that introduction that he made for me, got an interview, and I spent just a little under 2 years doing tool and cutter grinding, which I really liked it. It was 5-axis tool cutter grinder, all done in macro B, tremendous learning opportunity. But after about 18 months of that, I was bored to death. I was like, round tools are round tools, man. I want to get back to making some parts. And I just really had a passion to want to be a programmer, a 5-axis, multi-axis programmer. And I'd done some programming up to that point, but never really just got to do the things that I wanted to do. And after that, so a lot of people would have never left that job. Good security, good money, great benefits, security, stability, all that. Left, and at that time then I went to Goodrich Corporation in Tullahoma, Tennessee, making landing gear in that facility. Everything from A380, the big trucks on the Airbus, just gigantic titanium forgings coming in, big rail mills, gigantic lathes that they were like taking them to IMTS and showing them off before they bring them and install them. They were that noteworthy, right?
Right.
And they made a big investment in Integrex multitasking style machining centers to take that work from going across all these different machines. And there were people second, third generation working there, lining up to get in the door. Just tremendous benefits. Again, people just didn't leave those jobs, but it was really underwhelmed with the stifling environment, right? It was a union shop. It was so frustrating to me about when we talked about improvements. It felt like a government bureaucracy type of red tape when we know that we could make this improvement, but it was just met with such resistance. So I ended up leaving that job, and the other job I had that probably most people would never leave was being the machine shop manager for the Haas Formula One team, and that was the job that I had previous to coming here. So again, wonderful opportunity, got to make some cool parts, got to work with people in Italy and the UK, actually got to learn leadership and a lot of the good things that I can look back to about how to talk to people, how to deal with people, how to relate to people, how to be candid and have the candor to cut through to get to the how do we solve this problem was from Gunther Steiner, one of the greatest people I've ever worked for. And it's so funny to see him on television that he's kind of become that star of the Drive to Survive, but that's really him. Like, he would just tell me things and he would just say what needed to be said, but he could say anything to you and you wanted to do it. Like, he was just that way, but he cared, right? He really cared, and that's a great leadership lesson. But so many people would have never left that job. And I think when I'm talking oftentimes to people, I say, hey, don't trade great for good, right? And I think too many people settle in that regard. So, kind of backing up to your question, those young machinists, those people out there, I mean, I've still got, things that are on my bucket list per se, like, hey, I'm going to buy a machine at IMTS one day. I remember being that young guy they wouldn't even talk to when I came through.
Right.
I'm like, okay, one day, buddy, I'm coming back. I'm going to buy that machine right off the floor right there, Probably a lot of machinists have looked through Modern Machine Shop magazine and been like, man, I want to be in the pages of that one day, or be on an MTD video. Like, how cool is that? Like, it can happen. I'm just an old redneck boy that really has no business having made it, but here I am, right? And so I'd say show up, be persistent. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to be misunderstood. It's going to be hard. You're going to get punched in the mouth. But if it's something you really want to do, honestly, it's more accessible than it's ever been for people who are willing to put in the work.
Dwain, I love every bit of that story and love that you concluded with that as well. Now, let's fast forward a few years to where we are today. And before we get into the actual machine shop side of things, I'm looking at some GF machines, looking at some DMG Mores. I know you got an Akuma on the way. The place is foundation with work holding is the Lang work holding. But you have a foundation at this company as well that's a bit unique in its character. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit, because having dinner with you, being of service to others is important. Allowing people to share their voice is important. All of your, I think you would call them colleagues and not employees, all of your colleagues here you give them a moment every day to say more or less how they're feeling, what level they're at, and to compliment one another. Because me working in machine shops for 12 years as well, I felt a stagnicity at many of the places, a place where I wasn't being recognized. Even sometimes the job was monotonous, sometimes it wasn't monotonous, but it was me in a corner doing things on my own with very little compliments or something like that. So there's a lot of different stories that I think the audience has also experienced and can empathize with, especially in our industry. And then those who might be considering our industry may want to hear some of these stories as well. So again, going back to speaking with you earlier, service is a big part of your life. Being good to people is a big part of your life. And you've applied that at the company you've created as well. And I would love if you could share a little bit with the audience about what you've done here. And then if you'd like to expand on your personal life and being of service to others, that's up to you. But certainly if you could speak a little bit about how you've applied here at the company and what the people here mean to you, because that was kind of how you started out as well. Was I didn't start this all on my own. I had people all around me, and you still do. Right. And I think we all still do. And most successful people do surround ourselves with people we consider that bring value into our lives, that allow us to be the best versions of ourselves.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that service to others is at the heart of a life well lived, right? And so, I'm a Dave Ramsey fan. When you follow those Dave Ramsey 7 steps, the last one is you get a bunch of stuff, some wealth, and you give it away, right? You help people. And so, I'm always going to shy away from you saying you've created, because we've created here, and it's really being open-minded. It's having people around you that tell you what you need to hear. I'm a pretty hard-headed dude. I tell these guys, like, hey, you got to be pretty blunt with me and just say it, because otherwise it's right over my head, and I'm just like, and sometimes they point it out to me, and I'm like, oh, how did I not see that, But one of the things that we're able to do here is Anthony. So I had originally pictured Anthony coming in an operations manager role, right? And so Anthony actually fulfills 2 roles, and that's continuous improvement and talent management. Now, most people would call that HR. I really feel like saying talent manager is much more at the heart of how we want to approach that, right? And so Anthony spends all of his time, other than us discussing issues at a high level to the business, and the leadership group, which is comprised of Dan Perry, Anthony Spriggs, and myself. So even though I own the company, and we don't have that outside investor influence making us make wrong decisions, or even the right decisions for the wrong reasons, right? We're trying to make a conscious effort to do the right things for the right reasons. And so we can take the crock pot approach, to borrow from Dave again, versus the microwave approach, right? We're playing for the long game, but we know if we don't manage the short game properly, there won't be any long game. And it is scary, man, I can tell you. I had an opportunity one time where I try to talk to everybody, right? And so you never know when that person that you're going to talk to needs a problem solved that's going to change their life and your life, right? And I talked to this fellow one day, and he's like, hey, are you interested in a centerless grinder? And I'm like, well, that sounds cool from a machinist point of view. And I actually got some parts that I'm sending out right now to be centerless ground. But in my heart, I knew, like, well, I had to stand in front of that. And CNC, particularly unattended machining, is what we live and die by. And so anyway, I went and talked to this guy and ended up buying this centerless grinder and reselling it and making a little bit of money. But while I'm in there, he says, hey, we're going to sell this entire shop, right? I said, oh, okay. And so as it worked out, they didn't get that well advertised. There weren't that many people there. It was just a good opportunity, right? So I took the plunge. I made my bid. I went to the bank. I got everything. When I walked out of that bank with a cashier's check, I had, if you took all the accounts I had in the world and added them together, I had less than $5 left to my name. And I remember feeling like I wanted to puke when I come out of this bank, right? Ooh. And then I had to have it all out in 2 weeks, which was a big undertaking, right? So rolling those dice and putting, kind of taking some of those chances, right? It's scary. It's scary now. I mean, we're hiring people. We're bringing in new equipment. We're putting ourselves in a position where we own this building that we can expand, right? And it's still scary, but we don't have to make those decisions because of investor pressure. And even though I own the company, I still have 2 other very solid people that we're discussing those issues with. So it's not that you're going to come in and I'm going to be in, although I might be in a mood one day where I'm kind of excited and I'm keyed up and I've got a lot of stuff on my plate, I really try to be approachable, I try to be reasonable, and I think folks take some solace in understanding that this is going to be talked through. There's going to be a decision made grounded in some seriousness, right? And so as we look to that, when I worked at these larger companies, I could never have somebody like Anthony, who is basically a coach to me and everyone else here. We feel like machining can be something that you pour yourself into so much that I've seen many machinists, including myself, work way too much, right? And we want you to win at home. We want you to be winning as a father. We want you to be winning as a husband. If you come in here and do fantastic technical things, but you're not being able to deliver the best you and play with your kids and be present in their lives, then we really have not won at all. And so Anthony and Dan and the people who have, and I've lost some people along the way. I've had people that I really, really wish would be a part of this team who say, man, y'all work too much. And they're coming from, where we were, but I had to give a special shout out, especially to Peyton and Jesus, because they hung with me in the time that I was learning that lesson, right? And they just saw how we had to work in the beginning. I mean, we were here, we were sleeping here. There was a point in time that Peyton and I would come in on Monday morning, he had a cot, and we stayed until Wednesday night straight, right? And then we go home, and then we'd come back Thursday, and we'd stay till Saturday evening. And we did that for a long time, like month. Maybe it was several weeks, maybe a month and a half, maybe as much as 2 months. He can probably tell you better. His wife can probably tell you better than we can. But bless her heart too, Alyssa. And we've seen so much change. Where Peyton was a young man, he didn't have any kids. Now he's got 2 little girls, beautiful. Jesus in that time fell in love and gotten married. He's got his first son, Arturo, coming in early May. And we're seeing that Concise family grow. But Anthony and I and Dan, we're sitting at a spot in life where we can look in that rear view and we can see, you're about to have your second child. This is about to change in your life, right? And so we're able to now just have a much richer experience. And we've really transitioned that into how do we make the customer experience better? How do we make the employee experience better? How do we make the vendor experience better? We want everybody we have a dealing with for it to be a blessing to them. And we don't always get it right, but we learn and we improve and we tell each other what needs to be said. So many places you go and work, if somebody's got a problem with somebody, they tell everybody but the person that they got the problem with, and we'll say here, like, hey, if you come and talk to me about somebody, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, have you talked to them about it, right? And man, we're so blessed that we work together. That everybody here is rooting for you to win. That means we don't get frustrated with each other sometimes, but we have those conversations and we figure out how to solve the problem. So.
Right now, I want to talk about Datanomics. You're probably familiar with machine monitoring, but let me tell you, Datanomics has redefined what to expect from your monitoring solution. Datanomics is the next-gen production intelligence platform for precision manufacturers, providing real-time insights into what's happening on your shop floor without any operator input required. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Datanomics analyzes factory and job performance over time to help you make better informed decisions around job profitability, continuous improvement, scheduling, and more. Check out Datanomics at www.datanomics.io to see why so many manufacturers are turning to Datanomics for their shop floor data needs. I like that. No, that's great. That's kind of the way I wanted to go. And Dwayne, you and I think we really could talk for days. If we had the water in front of us, somebody bring us food every now and again.
Yeah, we'll do the next one on the beach.
Come see me in South Florida anytime. So I think now, because we can talk so long, I'd like to talk about some of these parts that are on the table. I know there's a piece of the audience out there right now that's been drooling over some of these parts while we talk about your story. And I like these parts because a lot of them are also helping people. You know,
Oh,
a lot of them are helping people. So that's why I want to get, and that's why I'm so excited about it as well. So you start wherever you want on whatever part you'd like to discuss, but talk about the reason behind it, how it was made, the complications. But also, let's not do it in a 3-hour period. Because you and I can talk forever, Dwayne. I know we can.
So what you're saying, Tony, is we need to be concise.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. We're drinking out of our Concise mugs. We got Concise logos behind us.
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, we can get so just worn down by the constant problem solving, because this is a problem solving business. People come to us with bad data, crazy deadlines, impossible problems, poor geometry, poor prints. I mean, you name it, we've seen it. And sometimes the guys can get frustrated by that, but you're talking about really impacting people's lives. And so a lot of these products we have here, they do that. When you're in the day-to-day and you're feeling the grind, we say, hey, look, you know, one of our customers shares with us kind of on an annual basis. You know, you were part of 24 FDA final mile trials to get these products to market so that people can enjoy a better quality of life. You got grandmas playing with their grandkids. You got, people that are home active, spending time with their loved ones that otherwise couldn't be, right?
This is how these stories come to life, as you think about that type of creation. Someone that wasn't walking that can, someone that couldn't see that now can. You're exactly right. That's what inspires me too.
And you know, the monotony sometimes of saying, okay, this is the 400th tapped hole that we've sent out on this order. Is that tapped hole right? You think, is there a guy somewhere standing in a hot zone calling on a radio for help that he's dependent on this antenna to work, and it's not? And he's not going to come home if we don't do our job right. So we really had to frame it in the greater good so that we keep our fire, we keep our focus, we keep our passion about serving people. And so to that end, we've got some parts here. This is a knee testing product. So what we received here was a new customer that worked with one of our existing customers, but they wanted to come direct with us. They sent us a scan of a femur. And so we took that, we went in with the mesh, we got the parts that we needed to conclude their test, and then we housed that into a, just a platform here that fits our client's testing apparatus. Not only that, in the bottom, when we're talking about how Lang solves problems, many, many times we're going to go back to our customers if it's a piece of tooling, if it's a piece of fixturing that we're helping design the interface to. We've got this 52 millimeter pattern right here. So, you know, we've really taken apart and we've simplified it greatly. Now, not only through the use of our tooling, but through the capabilities of having multi-axis machines. So we're able to come in, grip this material down here. We're in this op1, we're going to establish this OD, we're going to put these features in, but because we're able to put these precise Lang features right into the base of this with permission, what you're going to go back to your customer and you're going to say, hey, would you guys be open to putting 4 construction holes in this part? You'd be surprised how many times they're going to say yes. So now we're going to take that, we're going to put it right on that Lang system and we're locking it down. And we're able to come in and do this machining. We're able to come in and do multi-axis compound angle holes. Now what this actually does is this tests a drill bit.
Oh, here's the part that makes me cringe, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Woo.
So this is what they actually use in your surgery, in the knee. We're using this on our CNC machine to go in and we're not approximating, we're replicating what they're going to do.
To your knee, to our knees.
Yeah, we're doing it a whole lot better because we're under CNC control. They're doing it by hand with some fancy garage tools that are made out of stainless steel, perhaps.
Woo.
But yeah, they're going to come in, they're going to drill this into your knee, and then there's actually an implant that presses in here and it stands slightly proud, and then that's going to restore the functionality of your currently janky knee and bring it to bionic man level status. So again, this makes an impact in people's lives.
Yes, it does.
Our creativity and willingness to go back and ask our customer, hey, can we just incorporate these features in here? It simplifies our work. It allows us to do it faster, speed to market. Our customer really competes, and they've told us, hey, if we can't get this in and a week later be testing product, we can't differentiate ourselves from the other labs that are competing for this business. And so we've been a part, and we know because they've shared it with us, that we've been a part of helping them just redefine what's possible in that space of that industry and getting those testing results. And we do that with parts here where we're testing bone screws. We've got parts here where we're testing bone plates, spinal implants that we're holding this stuff. Everything that I'm showing you here was machined on the Lang platform. We've got things like synthetic bone material that will get sent from our customers. It has a variety of densities and different porosities. Implants will go in here. They can test how those devices will hold up before they put them in your body to find out that there's a shortcoming.
Right.
So again, we've been blessed in that space over and over. We're able to come in, utilize the Lang to come in and just present these parts in a way that we can gang them up, we can pallet change. We've made quite the investment. You know, you think it's really cool when you get a pallet changer until you start trying to tool it up. You think it's really cool to get a machine that's got a couple hundred tools in it until you start tooling it up. But, you know, the reality is when we've got 7 pallets in a changer, by the time we ever get to holding the workpiece, we've got $3,000 to $4,000 of investment sitting there. So, you know, we're at 30 grand of investment perhaps in that. But the beauty is once we prove out that one pallet, we can send it on its way for the night, right? And that's how we really compete. It's unattended hours.
And if I may interrupt real quick, Dwayne, I would like to touch quickly on ganging up.
Yeah.
Because there's certainly a large audience that knows exactly what we're talking about, but there's another percentage that goes, what do you mean, like ganging up? And ultimately, if we have, and I'm going to keep this simple, I'll let you expand on it, but ultimately, if I have one part and this part takes me an hour, and I'm able to put that part onto a work holding fixture that allows there to be 8 of them, or 10 of them, or 12 of them, that's ganging up, ultimately meaning even if we're not reducing the cycle time of the individual part, it allows us to walk away from the machine for longer periods of time or run through the night when no one's going to be here to create that efficiency and profitability.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, did I take too much from him?
Well, it is the key. I mean, how do we compete? And you see people like, Titan, he talks about that a lot in the fixture creation. And how do we present more parts? How do we get more cutting hours, right? And it's really getting proficient at learning where that point of diminishing returns is.
Right.
You can take a smaller job and say, yeah, that would be great. But learning where that value point is, and you're not always going to get it right. I mean, sometimes you're going to look back at a job and say, man, I should have ganged that up. But you just don't know. I mean, to that effect, we've got a part here. This blade, this actual component.
Beautiful part, by the way.
Yeah, 17.4. It's used in forming the skins of a helicopter blade. It's unique geometry as it goes up. It's got compound holes that are here, right? It's got some holes on the backside. But this is a great example of what you're talking about. So first inquiry, never met this customer before in my life. Matter of fact, in a group on Facebook, and the guy says, hey, I got some parts I think need wire cut. And I'm like, I'm your Huckleberry, right? Yeah.
Great movie.
Any of you guys like Tombstone?
Yes, sir.
Val Kilmer's greatest role of all time,
That's right.
in my opinion.
Mine too.
Iceman be a so close second, but yeah, I'm your Huckleberry. Send the files over, right? So he sends me these files, and I'm like, you can't cut that on a wire. Doesn't work. The geometries aren't there. I said, but we can mill them for you. So from that first inquiry, 9 days later, we had 27 unique parts in his hand, 2-3 states away, right?
Good grief.
And the way we were able to do that was there's actually 4 components in that fixturing set. So we made some very plain plates. They had the 96 millimeter pattern in the bottom. They had bolts that came up through the backside. So we had a vise op. We hold this. We face the bottom. We hit the outside. We put those holes in the bottom so that we can back bolt. We put them in the machine. 7 pallets. We got 4 pallets. We got 4 parts on each pallet. So that's actually 28 parts. Yeah, and we just leverage those unattended hours. And it's a change in thinking, because it's not, am I pushing it hard, am I pushing it hard, am I pushing it hard? It's not, I mean, you have to be respectable in your cycle times, but it's not the end-all be-all. It's how many parts can I make in a 24-hour period. Reliability trumps everything in this. We have to have robust processes that you can deploy. If you have to have the best guy in the shop standing there riding the knob, if you can't delegate it, you don't have a good process. And look, we get jobs that they do require that. They're right on the edge. We talk about process capability a lot. That's a great segue into this next part.
Hey, well, right? You did that on purpose, didn't you?
Well, it just works that way, okay? Here's a great part. Very, very tight tolerances. And if you hear me give the elevator pitch, it's going to be, we excel in the production of feature-rich parts with complex geometries. And this is a good example. Now, there's nothing crazy going on from a surfacing or curvature aspect. Lots of prismatic parts, but some very, very tight tolerances. This is a feature-rich part in regard to there's just lots of stuff going on that it's not that easy to see. But it's a great combination of 5-axis machining, wire EDM, and talking about process capability. So if you're right on the ragged edge of what the process is capable of, I know we've got to be cognizant of our time here. When we're on the edge of what a process can do, when we're pushing that process capability, it might take myself or some of the best guys that we have here, which, by the way, my goal is for them to be way better than me. I don't want to be the bottleneck of knowledge in this company. We want to empower people to create and execute robust processes. I want them showing me things, and they do. It's so awesome. I love it. They're sometimes reluctant to take that plunge, but when I see them reach out to a vendor and solve a problem and take what we've got and make it better, it's just such a satisfying moment because I know we're going to be all right. They've got that drive within them. So when we talk about that process capability, yeah, sometimes there's the situation where we need, for whatever reason, whether it's availability of capacity of person or machine or just the speed at which we need to do it, I might need to roll the dice. I think I can make this work. Dang, that worked pretty well. Or, oh man, that crash and burn. But here we saw there's some parts of this that I can machine very, very successfully on the 5-axis mill, but there's parts like down in here where it was just a slam dunk to wire that. Wire EDM will hold plus or minus 1 thou in the sleep all day long. Where over here we might be talking about, what if the cutter gets a little dull? It puts too much heat, puts some stress, now it's wanting to bend and potato chip, things like that. So we just try to engineer those robust processes up front in a way that we can deploy those processes. And we don't always get it right, man. It's been a hard thing to kind of nail down, but we do a post-mortem on that and try to debrief and understand where could we have done better, right? And just have those candid conversations. Here's another great example where we've got a part that was a combination of wire EDM, and I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but there's a big block rack here of, this is actually 4140. That was a setup part, but we're orienting it in that way so that we can get a proper grain structure, right? And Tony's going to show you just how heavy that part is in the beginning because it's taken, I can see him grunting, it's all he can do with both hands to hold that thing up. But here you can see how light this part is. I'm just barely able to pick it up with my fingers. So this part's heavily skeletonized, weight reduction everywhere, tight tolerances, tight features. It's not crazy. It does have some servicing on it, but it's just a good example of leveraging the power of multiple platforms, taking advantage of that fixturing, right? And being able to, we can stop mid-process. Hey, leave extra stock in that hole. If that hole finishes at 1 inch, program it to 990, put your finishes on it, and pull it off. If we can probe it on the machine, we can use bore mics. We can also take it off, go to the CMM, run more extensive analysis on it, come back, make some adjustments, first part's good, right? So we really try to look for ways to streamline that. But again, the power of utilizing the 5-axis machining, using the wire EDM, using the quick change fixturing, it's a big investment, but at the end of the day, the team members here, they're our biggest asset. They're our biggest constraint also, right? We don't want them here. We want to make sure that the time that they're here, they can get as much done as they can without killing themselves. And so the ability to leverage this quick change fixturing, to me, at the end of the day, I want to say it gives them more time to be at home with their family because they can get their jobs done quicker if we use that the right way. And then we can finish up with a part back here.
Oh, this crazy looking one.
Yeah, that's always catches a lot of looks. Yeah, it's just.
I bet it does.
Yeah, it's.
What is that thing, Dwayne?
So this is actually a compound mixing rotor. So in our customer's application, there's one compound going in here. There's another compound going in here, and as it makes its way down through here, it's just getting blended together until at the end, it's putting out a product that was completely different than the elements that were introduced on the beginning.
Can I tell you what it looks like to me?
Sure.
It looks like a new version of, instead of a Cat 40 or an HSK, a spiral twist of a holder going into a machine, with this part being the holder and this being a down spiral cut of an end mill.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely, and this is a situation where the customer came to us. This is drawn all as one piece, right? And they say, look, you can make it as one piece, you can make it as two pieces, you can make it as three pieces. We really don't have any objections as long as you make it match up well. So this part's actually made in two pieces. You could unscrew this top, but we've made it in such a seamless way.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. So, what we did here is we used our ingenuity to say, how does splitting this part make the most sense? And so we send this part out. It actually gets heat treated, and so it doesn't look nearly as complicated now. Although it's still got some challenging elements to it. But, again, how do we leverage our creativity, our ingenuity? This allows us to produce this with less material costs. We can machine it faster because can be machined on one machine, this can be machined on another. It's just a better product at a faster speed to market and a lower cost to our end customer. So don't be afraid to use those tools that God has given you to set yourself apart.
Well, I want to close this thing out by hearing that elevator pitch of yours one more time, because that should almost be your company's slogan as well. The way you laid that out when you were talking about this part right here. Do you remember exactly what you said?
Oh, I can tell you in my sleep.
Oh, let's hear it again.
We excel in the production of feature-rich parts with complex geometries.
I love it. I absolutely love it. For everyone watching, for everyone listening, I have one last thing. And that's if Dwain would like to share, because he's on the precipice of launching this. He told me Q2 maybe. But I believe if you liked listening to Dwain today and you like Dwain's story, you like Concise Manufacturing, and you want to hear him talk some more, you'll be releasing your own podcast before too long as well, right? Matsura Machinery USA Incorporated, located in St. Paul, Minnesota, is the U.S. subsidiary of Matsura Machinery Corporation in Japan. Since 1935, Matsura has been the forerunner in designing innovative technology and manufacturing solutions to a variety of industries around the globe. Matsura Machinery USA Incorporated delivers unmatched excellence in 5-axis, vertical, horizontal, linear motor, multitasking CNC machine tools, and machines with a powder bed metal AM platform with machining capability. Matsura Machinery USA Incorporated provides the service, applications, and technical field support that have always been the Matsura standard for business. For more information on Matsura products, please contact marketing@matsurausa.com or visit matsura.com.
Absolutely, yeah. So we just think that's a great platform in which to help people know each other, right? And to share these human stories. You think so many times that you know this person or you know that person, and man, if they just knew this about each other, I bet they could be great friends. And really, and most people that you meet, if there's just that one touchstone of commonality and a conversation can start, great friendships can come from that. So really, I see interviews with Willie Nelson, and he says, look, the same things make us laugh, the same things make us cry. We're a whole lot more alike than most people really believe. And so, here in Q2, I'll be launching a podcast called The Doer in the Arena. That's inspired from Theodore Roosevelt's The Man in the Arena, which I'm sure my man Tony is going to be introducing you guys to as well.
Absolutely. We got some video footage of that.
Yeah. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity to let people know, reach out to those people, if you're in this industry and you see those kids that are at your church or that are in your sphere of influence somehow, and you can say, hey, I know you may know what a plumber is, I know you may know what a welder is, I know you may know some of these other things, but let me tell you about machining, because I believe if so many people, if more people knew about this, there'd be so many more people that would really enjoy the satisfaction that comes from seeing something come from your head to your hands, but then going on to make an impact in people's lives. And that's really, really something that this world could use more of.
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure is neither one of us are going to stop talking about it, are we?
No, sir, not at all. No.
Not at all. All right, let's close this thing out, Dwayne, with your website and maybe a closing statement, whatever. If you've left something out, if I haven't asked a question, if we didn't go into some details of what you'd like to describe about yourself, your company, if there's some advice you want to offer, if there's a shout out you want to give to your coworkers, your employees, your wife, your kids, whatever you want to do, consider this the end statement like Jerry Springer had at the end of his shows, right? Where it was a crazy show, but then he came up with something super intelligent at the end. You're like, was that what the whole show was about? I didn't catch all that. But website so people can find you. I'm absolutely sure people are going to want to send you some more work now. On top of that, any closing statements you'd like to give?
Well, I'd say just don't be afraid to ask questions, even when you're dealing with customers. I mean, look, ask for target pricing, ask for, hey, can we have some construction holes? Ask for things to help solve those problems. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my mother. I told you the story from early on as a wee little boy, her having me redo where my work, saying, I think you can do better, and in a healthy way. But, a lot of my attention to detail and the way that I like to do my job, I'm very particular about what I want to put my name on, to the point of nauseam with some folks at times, but it served us well, right? And it goes for everything from how we ship our parts and the mild frustration that our customers have and open them up because we don't want our parts damaged, to just how we utilize the equipment that we have. But my mom has certainly been just a huge influence in my life. My grandma, my Uncle Tony, he showed me what a work ethic looked like and how to go for it and not be afraid to fail. Everybody that's helped along the way. I mean, there's so many people that have been on this journey, and each one of you have just helped us get where we're at, and we couldn't do it alone. So to the people that are here currently, we're just so blessed to have you to be a part of what we do every day, and to see the way that you guys work together, the way that you just make this place better every single day. And then when you go out in the community and we talk to the machine vendors, we talk to our partners, and we have such great partners. I would say even from the good work we've done with Micron, we've got great partnerships with Mastercam. Last year we bought ProShop ERP and we worked so well with those guys. I mean, there's so many people that are a part of the puzzle that I really do believe if you surround yourself with good people, spending time with good people, good things happen. And with that, I'll say I appreciate you letting us be a part of the Gunn Show.
You are going to be a fantastic podcast host, might I add as well. My friends, thank you all for watching and or listening to the Gunn Show today. This is my buddy Dwain, owner of Concise Manufacturing here in Carolina. One impressive guy. I am certainly grateful for the time I had today as well, Dwain. You are really a joy to talk to, and in fact, I'm going to have to bring you on again because we still have so much more to talk about. Yeah. Otherwise, again, we're going to have hours and hours and hours of tape of us having a conversation.
Well, I'll tell my wife to be packing for South Florida in the future.
Yes, sir. Maybe we'll even do it on the beach. For those of you watching and or listening, thank you again for tuning in. If this is your first time, I hope you enjoyed the episode. If this is your 10th time, thank you for joining us. This is how we humanize this industry. This is how we create awareness of all the good that we're doing around the earth when it comes to manufacturing. And without people like Dwain, without people like you watching, without all the advocates out there, a lot of my friends out there doing a lot of advocacy work, we're grateful for all of you, and we need you all. Thank you for your time, and we will see you again soon.